Welcome. In this episode, we are joined by aspiring urban designer Shannon Fisher, who will share her lived experience within the city and her perception of safety, which she came to realize is gendered. Furthermore, she gives input on how urban design strategies can be used to improve security. Her research touches on the aspect of well-being and public life. Safety and well-being are related. Being able to safely utilize the urban public realm has profound implications for people's well-being. There is a concern for personal safety not only having negative psychological effect, but also limiting a person's freedom and choice to move in a public space, thus reducing its use. A rich plethora of research has illustrated the benefits of public space utilization, including strengthened social cohesion, reinforced feelings of belonging, and improved mental health. Studies also suggest that intensive use of public space can stimulate the local economy by boosting tourism and recreational activities, thereby increasing property values. According to the London School of Economics, often the way in which women navigate through environments within which they exist is definitely influenced by both lived experiences and perceptions of safety. Arguments put forward are that women are excluded from participating in public space as a consequence of fear. This affects daily living, ranging from, but not limited to, the mode of transportation they choose, the route home from work or school they may take, which gym they go to, which park they take their children to. All of these daily activities are, to some degree, constrained by both devastating realities and heightened perceptions of crime. Join the chat as Shannon shares her view and experiences of the perceptions of safety in the city. I'm here with Shannon, and she is going to talk more about my topic, which is centered around perceptions of safety. Um, yes, Shannon, please introduce yourself, what you do, who you are.
Thank you so much for having me here. My name is Shannon Fisher. I just got my undergrad degree in urban and regional planning. I'm doing my postgrad honors in urban and regional planning. I'm pursuing a master's in urban design. My research currently revolves around the impact of urban design, spatial elements on well-being, and specifically how digital technologies and digital mapping tools can be used to facilitate the measurement of both the well-being and like a measurement of how urban design elements impact well-being, and also just how digital technologies can measure public space and cities for our benefit. I think it's going to be super interesting. I'm very passionate about topics such as like placemaking, public space, urban design. I love urban design, sustainability, people-centered planning, centered design, and people-centered civics. Yeah, that's me. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Perfect. Given that your research topic is within well-being and is looks at an aspect of well-being, and my research is about urban safety, I thought it would be cool to merge the two, because we know how safety, especially in public spaces, induces feelings of, if you feel unsafe, induces feelings of discomfort, unhappiness, weariness. You don't get to enjoy the space as much as you think you'd like. Yes, and I think that for me was interesting, especially given your interest in people and placemaking. So, firstly, I just wanted to hear from you, your perceptions of safety within the city, how you feel like, if you do feel like your gender has a role to play, your experiences. Yes, just give us your experiences of Johannesburg, living in the city, how that has been for you, how you perceive space as a result of crime, social disorder, physical disorder, you being female, if that has any effect for you. And yes, just to draw on your experiences.
Oh, yeah, I mean, personally, I think your feelings of safety and your safety in and of itself is extremely gendered. I think, and I'm realizing that more and more. I think I think this year was the year um, I really like felt that my feelings of safety weren't just general feelings that everyone has, and that it was very much gendered. I mean, like I used to walk in high school and primary school. I used to walk to and from school like every day, and I think that's when my sense of safety really like started to take like in public spaces, especially in the city, I really started to like I became really cognizant about. And I think like South Africa, we're very known for our crime, we're very like well known for like the lack of safety. So a part of me definitely thought that it was a universal experience, and like drawing on my like childhood experience walking to and from school, it would be very stressful because there were so many strangers that I would have to pass, and I have to pass a bridge. There was like a taxi rank that was right by the bridge I had to cross. So a lot of people obviously it's a main transport node, and my constant fear and anxiety was walking to and from school was people catcalling me, which happened all the time. People catcalling people trying to strike up conversation, and I think the biggest thing was I didn't know how to handle it. I wasn't taught how to handle it because um, the perpetrators were usually men. It was like I don't want to anger them. I don't want to upset them to invoke any kind of reaction. I don't want to, even though it's making me uncomfortable, I don't want to maintain those boundaries because that could be a risk to my safety. So how do I kind of like how do I like make the situation more passive and like like diffuse it without causing any harm to myself. And like I think also because I was a regular, I was like I can't anger anyone because my route is so predictable that if they like became upset and wanted to retaliate, they knew exactly when and where I would be walking in a public space. And I think like being so young and having to be worried about that was definitely not like I don't think it's normal. I don't think it should happen, and I don't think it was a really good molding experience for me, clutching my belongings as I'm walking because I'm so scared somebody's going to take something from me. Um, and I think like in the city, everybody's here in the city is built to like try to make a living. Like economic circumstances are so severe that people are desperate to do anything to, make a living, make ends meet. Um, and like, I've had a couple like scary experiences of like being robbed, um, and like super traumatized me. And I think I definitely felt more vulnerable because I was a woman, because there was so much more that they could take from me than they could take from my like male counterpart. Um, and I think like my feelings of safety, I always was super. I've grown up super anxious, super like anal, super like it would just consume my thoughts. Where's my phone? I need to know where my phone is at all times. I need to make sure if I'm in a public space or I'm moving through a public space, I need to make sure I'm dressed appropriately. I need to make sure that I am looking um, like my body is not showing at all. Even if like maybe I want to wear an outfit or a skirt or something. In the transition from me to my location, I need to have an outfit change because I'm scared of how to look. I'm scared of what like my clothing, what my body language would incite, what like would invite. Even though like I think now I don't think it's permissible regardless of your outfit, regardless of what what maybe people imply that you want. I don't think it's ever an invitation. I think how you dress is completely your own. But I mean, I had a conversation with a really good friend of mine this year, and he was just telling me a story about his experience. He had gone to Melville, which is obviously a very well-known social hub, and because he had been drinking, he didn't want to, so he didn't drive there. He Uber there, and he'd finally gone home, and he didn't want to Uber back to save money, so he walked home, and it wasn't like a very close walk. And I like that utterly shocked me. Like when I say I was shocked, like I was like, how could you do that? Like why would you go? Like I don't understand why you're so desperate to walk. Like why didn't you just Uber? Like you had the money, why didn't you just ask it to take you home? Like did you feel okay walking? Like all of these automatic thoughts just came up, and I was like, it just was so shocking to me. And he made it seem very like nonchalant, like, oh no, I just walk. Like, it was like, he I just walk, and I was like, I don't understand. And as we deconstructed like why he did. He wanted to save money. He felt comfortable. He just he wanted to think things over, and my fears were all rooted in like it's you're walking home at night. Anything could happen. Like what if somebody robs you? Da, 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 da. And like that wasn't even that wasn't an occurrence to him whatsoever. And I think that was the first time I really realized the divide on your experience just walking or in a public space and how that's so gendered. Like I up until that moment thought that everybody would avoid walking at night and would avoid doing these things. And like I took that for granted. I was like, everybody feels as extremely unsafe as I do. But hearing from him that this was something he did regularly, whenever he just wanted to walk, he just did. He would like take around his neighborhood, but and I mean, granted, his neighborhood was a safer neighborhood, but I think in Melville, especially, like a location that we both experienced and we both like been through very often. And it's also like a well-known, like dangerous, like increasingly dangerous place where like people's phones get snatched all the time. Seeing that he was so okay and would continue walking home, and that is something I would never put like a situation I would never put myself in. Really made me reflect on how like our experiences are different. Even like driving a car. Like we both had cars at that time, um, and whenever I would drive, like as soon as I got my first car, I had to train myself to get into the habit of as soon as I get in my car, lock your doors, just in case maybe you get distracted and somebody hops in and there's a precarious situation. As soon as you get in your car, lock your doors. As soon as you like start driving, you make sure your doors are locked. I never like almost barely ever open my windows because I'm so scared something's gonna happen or somebody's gonna take something. If I need to open my windows, I never open it past like the halfway point and all these things. And the same friend would have his windows open completely fully and like make sure my windows were closed when I stopped at a robot because like obviously there's like beggars there that are asking for things and I'm just like so paranoid that something's gonna happen to me. And also I feel like I'm so vulnerable being a woman driving, and I wouldn't drive it. I like the first year or two of having my car, I didn't drive at night at all, because I was like, I'm so vulnerable. If something happens at night at like a robot, like I won't be able to defend myself and I won't be able to manage that situation. And like he would windows open, like full, like at the robot was stopped, his windows are open, and it would cause me such feelings of anxiety where I feel really uncomfortable. Please can you close the windows? And he's like, like, yeah, sure. He didn't understand why, or like he drives at night all the time. Um, I think just having like an experience to directly compare my own to, and to see how different they were kind of really influenced my thinking about like how I mean, I actually didn't choose to be a man. I didn't choose to be a woman. However, how we experience the city is so different. Where we are, what we're doing, like, just it was a really, it was sort of mind blowing. Like, it made me introspect so much on how like my role in the city, because you'd think that in Johannesburg, a notoriously like dangerous place, that everybody's experiences would be the same, but they're they're definitely not. But yeah, that's kind of my experience regarding my feelings of safety within like Joburg, within the city.
That is so interesting, what you shared, because the interesting part is I think we share the same experiences or similar experiences in as far as how we feel in the city, the reasons why, because also I used to walk, especially in high school, not much primary, but I used to walk in high school back home, and exactly the things you've experienced, I'd feel like the cat calling, they're just feeling discomfort in the space, you know, and you mentioned being robbed, and I've had a similar experience, a house robbery, daylight, and in that moment, a lot of thoughts were just going in, like, through my head. It was, my safety, my, like, what could get taken away from me, as in, like, my spirit, and stuff like that, because I was scared of a lot. And another interesting thing is, earlier when conducting interviews, I had a male say to me that he prefers walking at night in the streets, like, publicly, than during the day. And when I asked him, he's like, no, he prefers it because the streets are quiet. And that shocked me, because I was like, it is the exact, like, it is for that very reason that I avoided, like, the time of day, the quietness, the feeling like anything could happen at any time. And yes, and when I asked him, it wasn't much to do about any urban design features for him. It was just that it was quiet. And when I think about walking at night, it's, I think lighting. I think, how does the place look? Is like, how is are the buildings decaying? Like, the physical order or disorder for me also plays a role. But yeah, I guess that's why I'm investigating this, because it's just interesting to see or to listen to. Um, yes, and then I also wanted,
Yeah, I think that's crazy.
right?
Sorry, just to make a comment, like I think it's crazy that like our experiences can be so different. Like I completely understand the logic behind, oh, it's at night, so you can kind of get out of your head, and I can see why it would be nice, but that even the thought of that never have like has never occurred to me, because I'm like danger, like the lack of lighting equivalent to a dangerous situation, and you're taught to always avoid that. Um, so it's crazy. I mean, I would love to have the freedom and liberty to be able to walk at night. I think like it sounds like the most like peaceful thing ever, but unfortunately, that's not our reality.
Yeah, unfortunately not. That is just not the reality we have. And I also find it so crazy and interesting how, um, you know, so much difference can exist within, like, within the same society, with the same, um, physically the same amenities. It's just amazing. And I just wanted to ask you, given your passion in urban design, um, what what urban design how can urban design, rather, be utilized to change some of the existing perceptions of safety, or rather to enhance safety, specifically for, vulnerable groups, those that feel most, um, yes, like, how will we feel? How do you think urban design can be used to aid, uh, elevate, or alleviate feelings of insecurities within public spaces?
Yeah, yeah. I think like the most the most obvious one is lighting. I think lighting can impact safety hugely. And I think it just also leads to visibility. And I think like the best way to almost create safety or a sense of safety is through like visibility, whether it's through lighting, whether it's public visibility. So like if place that you're trying to make safe, the best way to make it safe is to have like make sure it's in the public view, because safety is also correlated to, do you think that like if you're in a situation, could they get away with it? Would anybody see? Would anybody be able to find out and call somebody for help or intervene themselves? Uh, is it like if it's well lit, like it's very easy to see something's going on, and whatever how quiet is, if it's a busy space, it's more likely to be like safer because there are so many people moving through that space. Um, However, if it is less busy, if it's super quiet, if it's in a corner with very little lighting, with that's almost like encountered by like that's almost never encountered by people, it tends to be more like dangerous, more dare I say. So the design interventions that I would say that are simple as just putting lighting, putting like visibility where maybe it's a high traffic route, where people maybe through the facades or the barriers between the space and the public, um, they can see directly what's going on and without any like hindrance of visibility. And I think like another, and I think it's a controversial intervention, but it's like boundaries, whether that be fencing or walls. I think in some ways that can keep people out. It can by kind of controlling the accessibility of a space. You can control how many people are entering and exiting and where. So if it's similar to like maybe a gated community, like where I stay, the neighborhood I stay in, it has many. Sorry, it has many like routes in and out of the neighborhood. But all of them are closed off except for two. And the one, so of the two, the one is closed during the night time, like I think from like 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. It's completely closed. So there's only one way to get in and out of the neighborhood. And it's through that control of access you can create safety. Everyone that comes in and out of the neighborhood can only come through certain access points that you control. And by measuring those access points and monitoring those access points, you can create a sense of safety. And I also think it's also cultural. I think a sense of safety is also so difficult to create in South Africa that has such a like well-known issue of safety. I think like how you feel when you're on the raw street versus when you're maybe inside enclosed in a building is completely different. On the raw street, a car can just come, snatch your phone, and go very quickly. The, whereas if you're in an enclosed space, especially a private space, likely to feel more safe and more, just like less like you're in a dangerous and vulnerable position because those boundaries, barriers that control the access to people in. But I guess there's the one criticism of like fencing and walling and boundaries is it's very exclusionary. It's very exclusive. You're keeping people out. You're keeping people in and you're also keeping people out. And it's like who's this targeted towards? Are you targeting people who have a certain look? Are you targeting people who have a certain background? Are you targeting certain communities? And I think gated communities can be trying to encourage a sense of safety and community by limiting the amount of people going through the neighborhood, but also excluding other communities from intermingling with it to get that balance of safety while also promoting inclusion and integration, where it's not just class-based, where a class only deals with their own class. And I think it's really difficult to tackle in like one place. There are some like design interventions that one can practice to get a sense of safety. But if the culture isn't there, if people don't feel like the type of people that would be around them would be people they would be safe around, that's also so subjective. And I think it's you know damn, I just lost my train of thought.
Yeah.
Give me a second.
Oh, okay. So sorry.
I completely forgot what I was saying. But yeah, urban design interventions. I would need. I mean, like lighting and like boundaries and fencing, but fencing that still promotes like accessibility to everyone. But the provision of security guards, the provision of, and I guess maybe that's not specifically urban design, but yeah, I think it's very cultural. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you for that, Shannon. I think you did raise very interesting, points, especially the controversial ones, because I never thought about it, especially the exclusionary, because obviously perhaps I'm being biased. I'm thinking security first. Um, but you do raise an important point that I think, especially as, aspiring urban designers, urban planners, people who are going to design the city. I think you raise a very good point in terms of access versus, access inclusivity versus security. And, this is just a thought that came up now. I hadn't looked into it. And now that is yeah, no, that is it's replaying in my mind. It's an interesting view. um I mean, I wish we had, the time to go into that as well, but yeah, we've got very, very limited time. But yes, it was a pleasure talking to you, Shannon. Thank you so much for your input. um yes, you brought interesting points, food for thought, especially for urban planners, controversy, how we will go about, certain debates. Do we weigh what's more important? Do we say, is security more important, or do we find a balance between the two, if there's even a balance? Um, if there's a middle point on where we can achieve inclusivity, where we avoid exclusionary um, planning, but at the same time, maximizing security, especially for vulnerable groups. But yes, thank you so much for your input. It was a pleasure talking to you. Yes.
Thank you so much for this insightful conversation. I think it's a conversation happening. Um, yeah, I really enjoyed talking to you about